what she sent out. Perhaps she was being petty, but life was too short. Next year, she'd only send cards to those people who had sent one to them. That was fair. She smiled again. She was also sure she'd made the same promise last year, and yet this year she seemed to be sending out twice as many cards. Kathy looked up at the clock. Just after 5. The mailman usually came at 5:30. She'd have just enough time to stuff the letters in the mailbox. Robert hated when she did that. He felt it was unfair on the mailman. However, she believed it was his job and had no issues with leaving the letters in the mailbox for him to take away. It was a lot easier than driving or, God forbid, walking 8 blocks in the freezing temperatures to the closest post office. Besides, it was snowing. No need for her to go out unnecessarily. Then, as a treat for doing all the cards, she was going to order in rather than cook. Indian from the curry house for Robert and herself, Chinese from Lucky Wah for Brendan and Teresa. If she timed it right, the kids would get home right about the same time the food arrived. Only 4 cards left, all of them to Robert's business colleagues. She sat down at the table again and turned the cards over in her hands. These needed a personal touch. He should really write them himself, she decided. She pushed them into their envelopes, but left the flaps open. She'd address them so he'd have no excuse. The first was to the head of the little multimedia company he used in East Cambridge. The second to the talent agency near Copley Square that supplied extras for crowd scenes. She smiled as she scribbled the address. It didn't seem that long ago that she delivered these cards by hand, trudging across Boston to put them into the mailboxes because they couldn't afford the stamps. How quickly things had changed. Robert and Kathy's struggling independent television production company had landed one small job, an insert for a documentary on racism. It was a small, self-contained interview segment with an African-American hip-hop artist. They'd recorded it over a weekend and thought nothing more about it. Then the artist had won an award, made the cover of Esquire, and the documentary had won a Palme d'Or award. Robert had ridden the coattails of that success. He had new corporate brochures printed up that managed to give the impression that R&K Productions had won the award themselves. As usual, no one bothered to check, and the little lie became self-perpetuating. Kathy remembered a dinner where she was introduced as one half of the company that won the Palme d'Or for that marvelous documentary. She'd been so embarrassed she hadn't had the nerve to contradict the speaker. The company flourished, and in doing so had taken its toll on them both over the years. Building a business meant that certain things, family, friendships, personal time, vacations, went by the wayside. R&K Productions still made documentaries, but nowadays principally concentrated on advertising, corporate training videos, and commercials. They also shot local color pieces, inserts for foreign videos. She knew Robert fully accepted, and regretted, that he'd never now make huge, landmark documentaries for National Geographic, the Discovery Channel, or HBO. Kathy didn't share those regrets. The money was regular, and with 2 teens and a mortgage, she'd take financial security over artistic integrity any day. It had always been one of the fundamental differences between them. She looked at the envelope in her hand. Burst Post-Production House. She said the words aloud, surprising herself, her voice sounding unusually loud in the silence of the kitchen. Post-production. A new business in itself where computers cleaned up the errors humans made. Kathy rifled through the address book looking for Burst, though she doubted she would find it. This was one of the new companies Robert had only started working with this year. He never wrote the most recent addresses in the old address book. He preferred to store them in his iPhone. Kathy wandered out into the hallway. Although this would be their 6th Christmas in this home, she'd never quite gotten used to the sense of space, particularly in the hallway. Their first house had a short, dark, narrow hallway that led straight into the kitchen. This one boasted a large circular foyer.